potent times and powerful tensions, powerful needs that must be heard and shared. It is the reality of evolutionary necessity. It is the season of frustration, the frustration of evolutionary cataclysm, the drive, or rather, the force for change. There is much more driving our experience than simply karma, having chosen the right path or having figured out the right things in our life. The force of evolution, which is at the foundation of our very experience of life itself, will be active in every person's life, like it or not. In this video, I'm going to be getting down and dirty with you, talking about the forthcoming weeks of the month of November 2021. We are meeting under a Scorpio New Moon. Scorpio, no bullshit. Scorpio is reality. And reality, as we're going to talk about today, is not simply just pretty. And yet, how many of us orient our lives to live clean, pretty, tidy, and predictable lives? Well, this is where we can potentially meet the challenge of Scorpio. See, Scorpio is never settled, never settling. There is a need to change, to go deep, to transform, that is revealing a deeper level of understanding ourselves, relationships, and the world. Now, when we resist this change, when we resist the deeper complexity, the deeper murkiness, the deeper darkness of life, we experience breakdown. The superficiality, which seeks to have an easy or buoyant experience, can lead to the inauthentic sweeping under of the rug of our real desires, our real fears, our real motivations, to the point where monsters can come out of the closet, where we can be nearly possessed by the ulterior motives we seek to avoid because of the discomfort of confrontation that we are all needed to seek in order to embrace this change. And even if we do embrace the change and the season of going deep, it's still hard work. And so again, I'm going to give it to you straight. I don't give new agey, sugar-coated, bullshitty astrology. The way I see the status quo is largely oriented towards in our pleasure-seeking, capitalistic society. No, we're talking about a new moon in Scorpio ruled by Pluto in Capricorn. So Pluto and Saturn are the big players. They are the heavyweights of our experience, our existence, and oftentimes these are the parts of our life experience which are most avoided or run away from. In fact, so many of my brothers and sisters have created entire religions or New Age philosophies that are oriented around bypassing and avoiding the deeper and harder aspects of life, or having any responsibility or accountability for the more challenging circumstances that we find ourselves in. This does not mean when we find ourselves in challenging situations that it is any sign of failure or that we're doing something wrong. Rather, this means that this is an aspect of life. These philosophies and spiritual teachings that encourage the running away and bypassing of the heavyweights and the harder aspects of life simply encourage us to demonize ourselves when we experience these tight spots. What I'm telling you today is that there is no way to avoid these tight spots. This is the reality of Saturn, of Pluto, and we want to seek the need, the explosiveness, the reality that won't always be pretty, that won't always be fun and games. This is when we can become tremendously empowered. This is where we can develop a level of fearlessness coming from the strength to confront and acknowledge the underlying reality of our life, of our world. So, Samhain does not simply end on Samhain this year. And I wish that some more of my fellow witches and nature-oriented souls were aware of the actual cosmic seasons and cycles that do not necessarily align with the Julian calendar or the simple solar cycle. So this year's Samhain is going to continue. In fact, this new moon setting the tone for the month of November is just initiating this imperative season of digging up, exposing, shining a light on the darkness, and transforming the raw materials at hand. We'll talk about how this new moon in Scorpio is conjunct the asteroid Hidalgo, which is actually a centaur planet that goes very far out and then comes into the asteroid belt. Hidalgo was the Mexican priest that organized the Mexican Revolution against Spain, that overthrew Spain through this ringing of a church bell and bringing people together to overthrow the powers of oppression, to revolutionize our experience through this need to change, this need to rebel, this need to push against the standards, the norms, the expectations and obligations of our given circumstance. This can be a very powerful signature of this new moon that's also opposite to Uranus and square to Saturn. This is the theme of 2021. Something has got to change. Something has got to change. And this can either be in a breakdown, inevitability type of way, or it can be in a more co-created inevitability to break out of the chains of the past. We cannot accept our given reality, our given circumstance, as if that normal were acceptable, the same way so many nations and peoples were oppressed by tyrants, by invaders, and then needed to overthrow those tyrannical or oppressive forces. Folks, this new moon has this type of charge. We can really sow a seed to come into this type of empowerment, this type of revolutionary capability that's not afraid to challenge, to speak out against, to whistle blow, to expose the deeper, harder, more complex, and darker aspect of reality, which I'm going to be sharing with you today, is reality itself. Because the entire delusion or the illusion that life, God, and nature is love and light and everything pretty, and when we meditate the right way, or when we click our heels together in the right way, we're going to get that quick ticket to heaven, is an illusion. It's a deception that discourages us from actually honoring or accepting the whole of life. Scorpio is the full spectrum experience of life, good, bad, and ugly. I've spoken to this before. Any real oracle includes a reflection of nature, good, bad, and ugly. So if we're using an oracle deck that has only unicorns and angels and light, fluffy things, we're unable to correctly or accurately read or assess reality. The full spectrum experience of life, good, bad, and ugly, is the human experience, is the experience of nature, is the experience of God. Therefore, when we avoid the shitty, smelly, uncomfortable parts, we run away from the truth. The truth is not pretty. God has personally not shown me that she's always appropriate. I would also embrace this reality that it's not always about behaving or looking appropriately if we are actually aligned with the vein of truth. And this is not something that's very commonly spoken out there because the amount of souls really devoted to the truth are much less than we would love to believe. There are many more people that say they are interested, for example, in shadow work than those who actually do shadow work. Shadow work means that we're not projecting shadow onto other people. Shadow work means that we understand that the light and the shadow goes together in reality. That means any person, any soul, or any circumstance, the light and the shadow goes together. This is not a reality of how do we transform our shadow to get rid of our shadow. This is not a reality of how do we bypass the hard things in life so we can get to the good things in life. That is how we get chewed out by periods like the one that's on the immediate horizon. Now let's dig into some of the technical astrology, and then I'll come full circle back into a Scorpio rant. First of all, Mercury just squared Pluto on Tuesday the 2nd. This is a reflection of the whole last Mercury retrograde. Mercury stationed at the end of September at 25 degrees Libra square to Pluto. So this first week of November, we can really be reflecting on the end of September, our relationships, our interactions, our friendships, how we're exchanging energy resources. Is this really supportive? Are we being heard? What is the missing conversation? What is the missing need? There is a capability to look with a penetrating X-ray vision. And by the way, as always, I'm reflecting the tone of this new moon. I mean, I think people could even just listen to the tone of my voice, if nothing else in these videos, and get a good sense of what's to come. This new moon is very potent. This month of November is a big month for each and every one of us. And one of the dynamics that's making this such a potent time period is that we have this much more scrutinizing X-ray vision, where we can really see the nitty-gritty details, but also observe what are the actual dynamics in our exchanges, in our life, and how we're spending our time, what's going on beneath the surface. Is now Mercury entering into Scorpio on the day that Venus goes into Capricorn tomorrow. A significant shift in energy this week that's getting more serious, getting more real. Yes, we could experience this as a heaviness, but this is, again, not a heaviness that we should seek to avoid or have any assumption or belief that it's wrong, that we're actually going down and getting to business. So this new moon, we see asteroid Lucifer also conjunct Mercury, and there's this powerful mind that can really communicate and talk about things, what's really going on. These are the pieces, these are the players. This is where the pieces fall on the chessboard now. If we move this piece that way, we can get this circumstance. If we move this piece that way, we can get another situation. And we're going to be playing this chess game with one another. We're going to be looking at power dynamics. We're going to be looking at attractions and repulsions and what we like and what we don't like about one another. And it's an opportunity for us to go very deep. There can be a cataclysmic effect in our own observations as well as how we're sharing these observations with others. Again, my recommendation is that we need to get it out on the table. I'm a broken record every year when it comes to Scorpio, that we sweep the skeletons out of the closet, or else we become possessed by them. I have spent too much time in the New Age movement not to be affected by the amount of disgraceful behavior that is, my friends, all pervasive. I think that you can find predatory yoga instructors maybe easier than you'll find authentic yoga instructors that actually fucking know their shadow and actually know what they're dealing with. I'm being totally honest. I think that there is so much misbehaving, bullshitting, running away, absolutely pretending, talking and not doing in the New Age movement, in the yoga communities, in the spiritual communities. We have to be honest that there's more bullshit than there is truth in most of these environments. So this is the opportunity for us to get a little bit more real. Mercury in Scorpio has this tone and voice. It's just like, fucking take it or leave it. This is how it is. And the challenge is therefore to communicate effectively, where we're not going to blow up something bigger than necessary. We don't want to use words that are like knives or daggers. For example, if we're ever saying something insulting to somebody, or we're using a name calling in any way, shape, or form, that means that we've already failed. Having a respectful conversation. That veers into the realm of abuse. And this is very tricky. It's hard not to become subtly abusive when we're all stepping on each other's toes and we're getting this friction and we're poking each other in each other's painful spots. And we have to know that this is how life is meant to be. It's not, again, that you join the cult, do the right meditation, and then these aspects of life go away. I mean, my God, anyone who's actually spent any amount of time in a temple or a church-like environment knows how charged environments are with tension, with drama, with conflicting perspectives. And it's almost like the world of politics, where you get angels and demons sitting side by side, working seemingly for the same direction and the same goals. And it's not in any way, shape, or form the same directions or the same goals. So anyways, that's a reality. That's something that can be talked about. And this is what we're going to be doing in all of our relationships this month. Okay. So we've got these big movers, Saturn square Pluto. We're changing how we deal with society. We're going to talk about we're changing how we deal with money and resources and our job and our establishment and how we relate to the world. That's where we're also going to experience a lot of frustration, right? Because this is evolutionary necessity. We have to, as a species, continue to change. And my highly Plutonian Scorpio souls that I personally see are quite rare and few and far between, they actually have a craving need to continue to change. They have a comfort in the fire. We've got to talk about it. We've got to expose it. We need to change this now. We can't wait for this to just slip to the side. We can't just wait for this to fester over time. We need to lay it all out. Let's change our lives overnight. Let's become as empowered as we possibly can right now. That is, at its highest potential, the gift of Pluto, to show up in the world as a catalyst of change and transformation, through being empowered, through knowing that this is what it means to be a human, that we continue to transform, right? In no way, shape, or form do our religious or cultural beliefs give us this understanding. Really, we don't have an understanding of evolution in our spirituality. There's this huge division between science and spirituality that's driving me fucking crazy this year. How disappointing that we really can't bring these worlds together as if they don't go together. And they do. They reflect the same nature. Okay? Now, a lot of sexual transformation. Now, Scorpio is really deep. It is death, birth, and sexuality using the same doorway. And there's a lot of healing that can be going on in these areas this coming couple of months. Mars will be in Scorpio through the end of this year. We'll have the South Node transiting Scorpio all of 2022. I mean, there's going to be a lot that this month of November is actually going to be foreshadowing the years to come. There's a foreshadowing of what is that shadow work that's going to take years. Because people think shadow work is something you just enroll in a 30-day class and then you understand what your shadow is. No, this is our lifetimes and our relationship to the world, doing our job, this bureaucratic situation with government, with taxes, with money and systems of authority. You know, there's gonna be work. It's gonna take some time. We're gonna have to really explore these dynamics between getting our needs met, biological needs. It's gonna be a huge focus, being heralded and foreshadowed this month of November. Forthcoming lunar eclipse in Taurus is going to illuminate the forthcoming year and a half of the moon's north node transiting Taurus 2022 through mid-2023. There's a need to take care of ourselves and our basic biological needs. Taurus is survival. Now, this can play out sexually. Again, death, sex, sexuality uses the same doorway. So a lot of us are healing from past life traumatic deaths through our sexuality, consciously or unconsciously. Many of us have particular desires or fears that are inexplicable. Why do we have this type of magnetic attraction or repulsion? And it's mysterious and it's weird and sometimes it freaks us out. And this is, again, where religion and culture becomes a horrible, oppressive force by saying, well, you should fit the other people who don't have those fears, or you should fit these other people who don't have these desires, and you should look like, you know, Yogi Bhajan or whatever monk. And this is an oppressiveness of our individuality. Our sexuality, our desires, whether consciously understood or not, is connected to our soul's evolution. Scorpio is the fearlessness to shine light on the darkness. The dark is simply unknown. It's what's mysterious. And we get massive pushes and pulls from the mysterious symbols and archetypes that are in our life. And we need to safely explore these areas. The asteroid Pandora is conjunct Mars in Scorpio at the time of this new moon. Now, my guess is most of you are familiar with the mythos of Pandora's box. Yes? So there's going to be some Pandora's box type exploration of Mars, our drive, our instincts, our libido, our sexuality, and our masculinity. Ladies, you're chock full of masculinity. just as a healthy reminder and being the severe minority as a male gender in this new age astrological spiritual movement. Men are the severe minority. Ladies, you're chock full of masculinity. I hope you're aware of that and checking that and taking a look at that in your own experience. Because something that's very common in this new agey world where people are trained to avoid their shadow and bypass into this false happiness and this false security that's largely oriented around the religion of disassociation, the religion of bypassing or avoiding, which is, by the way, I'd say the more popular religion in the New Age movement, just as a general observation. The truth is reserved for the few and far between who are not afraid to get their hands dirty. The occult is scary, frankly, because God is scary, frankly. And a lot of people don't want to know or experience that side of God, which is why it's reserved for the people who've got a little bit more of a badass quality, Saturn and Pluto. Well, there's this huge propensity to connect with whatever's most exciting or most rewarding and to really connect with that. Maybe it's a new person, maybe it's a new hobby, maybe it's a new workout, maybe it's a new teaching. And then once that thing has run out of steam, then we blame that person, thing, or event as to why we now feel depressed or why we feel lonely, and then we have to skip and jump on to the next thing. This type of jumping and skipping and bypassing and avoiding can lead to massive amounts of shadow projection, which means that we're going to unconsciously take advantage of something until we realize it's not perfect. And then we're going to project onto that thing outside of ourselves is responsible for our own experience of imperfection. Guess what, my friends? Imperfection is what we're here to experience because this isn't a freaking perfect world in any way, shape, or form. And we have to continue to evolve. There's never going to be this moment in time where all of a sudden you get to take a vacation through the rest of your life. Now, I also want to speak to the North Node in Taurus these coming years and a half. This polarity between Scorpio and Taurus, which is very, very active this month of November, is the balance between the need and the drive to transform. In Scorpio, this is also reflected through the need for intimacy, for union, or sexual connection. That can be an unconscious, biological, very powerful magnetic need, right? Many people are driven by this need for intimacy or sexual connection and may not even necessarily know why. Well, the why is evolution. We merge with another soul. There's a tremendous exchange of data and information, and that catalyzes change and transformation. But guess what? In our relationships, particularly our intimate or sexual unions, that can become quite intense, can it not? Once we start having sex with someone, it starts to get to a whole nother level of intensity, does it not? Well, that intimacy can become quite claustrophobic. Claustrophobia, Scorpio reality. And Taurus, the opposite of Scorpio, is the spaciousness. The open, green, rolling pastures with 2 cows barely moving throughout an entire day while they eat grass all day long. That's Taurus. We need the balance between Scorpio intensity, union, exploring the dark, digging everything up, conflict. We've talked about conflict being necessary. There's no such thing as avoiding conflict in any healthy relationship. Any healthy relationship. I get concerned by my friends who boast about their lacking of conflict in their relationships. It's like, all right, who's the dominant one and who's the submissive one? And how are you all pretending that it's all fair and equal when one of you exists and the other one doesn't? That's the reality of relationship. So we're going to be looking at these power dynamics. And by the way, this is one of my not pretty truths. There's always power dynamics. There's always power dynamics in relationship. I've never met a couple, I've never met a relationship where there were not power dynamics. And usually one person wears the pants, and usually one person takes orders. And then those usually form various types of codependencies, trauma bonds, fears, apprehensions, and then that generates a huge percentage of the suffering we have throughout our life. What I would suggest, my friends, is instead of pretending that there are not power dynamics, that we get down and dirty and simply admit to ourselves that there are. In every single relationship, there's power dynamics. That's not pretty, but guess what? Neither is reality. Reality is that we have needs that are selfish, Taurus. And we've all been trained by Christian Pisces age spirituality, New Age Pisces age spirituality that is for the most part just recycling Pisces age Christian spirituality. Really not progressive. Most of my New Age teachers, especially the popular ones, they're just recycling what is already sounds nice to us. Oh, what? Instead of this praying to God for answers, we now use positive manifestation and The Secret to pray and to get everything that we want. Anyways, there is not the need for conflict. Like, we should avoid conflict. We should be polite. We should be accepting. We should be appropriate. And, you know, what this leads to is, again, a self-sacrificing. Like, we shouldn't have needs. We shouldn't be selfish. The more we pretend that we're not selfish as human beings, the more we're going to go fucking crazy. And we're going to go crazy in, for example, in a relationship dynamic where either we become the in denial narcissist who's completely puppeteering our partner, or we're the completely in denial submissive who's being completely puppeted by our perfect can do no wrong partner. Folks, there are power dynamics. We all have needs. Why someone's dominant and why someone's submissive has to do with those needs. Someone feels safer in these roles. Both people can feel safer in these roles. These are things that we can talk about. It's not about avoiding the power dynamics. It's about making them conscious. It's about agreeing upon them. It's about laying our fears and apprehensions out on the table so that way we can actually see what's driving our day, what's driving our motivation, what's inspiring us or what's not inspiring us. That's what it's going to boil down to. And you know what? We're going to be more selfish than we maybe would like to admit to ourselves in reality. Now, it's a tricky prescription and thing to say in an astrology video because I've seen thousands of clients and I know some people have a more natural narcissistic orientation and some people have a more natural get behind the scenes and clean everybody's clothes and make everybody's lunches type of nature. And there's not even anything necessarily wrong with that. This is Pluto material. I mean, this is the nature of how consciousness forms itself. And we would like to maybe change the structure of our consciousness, but it ain't going to be that simple. All of my fakers out there that are pretending to be, you know, Guruji, yogi, spiritually aligned, and then they're just wanting to have sex or just wanting to feel comfortable. It's just like, come on, just say you want to fuck. You know what I mean? Just actually admit what it is that's driving you so you don't have to do this stupid, fake, avoidant, covering it up, sweeping it under the rug bullshit. Because I've worked with all these people. They're not spiritual, the way they make their image, the way they hold their expression, the way they condition their mood to only be positive, which is a weird dissociative PTSD response. No, it's totally fake. So just lay it out. It doesn't matter if it doesn't look pretty. That's what it means to be a human. And this is a spiritual dilemma because I see that this is like we don't allow ourselves to see this in nature. We don't allow us to see this reflected in the animal kingdom. We don't allow us to see this face of God, where there's a face of God that's quite intense. Saturn and Pluto is a part of the makeup of our nature. There are very, very challenging rites of passages that all human beings face at various points in times historically, at various points in our own lives. And what, we're just supposed to fucking ignore that shit? No, this is our life. When we're being a little bit dark or a little bit tense or a little bit frazzled or depressed, this is our life. And if somebody else who's depressed or frazzled or intense is having an effect on us, that's life too. Again, this dissociative bypass, avoid, New Age culture. I'm sick of it in Asheville. I've been here for 5 minutes and it's like fucking everywhere where it's just like you discard people when you see their shadow. Are you serious? You don't see anybody then. You don't know anybody then. You don't know the person until you know their shadow. You don't get light without shadow. You don't have a relationship with anybody without both light and shadow. So why are we always pretending to be one and not the other? Why are we faking ourselves into believing we can have always positive or happy-go-lucky days if that's not real life? We have to get down to business this month. There's going to be compulsive wants and desires. This is the drive of life. Again, spirituality is put down selfishness and desires as being wrong, and then we lose our life force. We lose our libido. We feel like we're a ghost drifting around, and oh my gosh, I'm doing everything perfectly right. I'm taking care of everybody that I'm supposed to take care of. Or there could be the other side of the same dynamic where we have short-circuited our human nature through delusional, happy-go-lucky spiritual thinking, and then I'm so happy, but I feel no sense of purpose. I feel happy, but I'm kind of drifting around and I'm rootless and I don't have my feet connected to anything because you're choosing happiness to opt out of the more hard and challenging parts of life that's going to maybe affect our mood. So we have to get down and dirty. We have to actually address the underlying reality, even if that's going to be temporarily uncomfortable. That's the nature of Scorpio. Now, on the day of this new moon, we see Venus, the last degree of Sagittarius, semi-square to the new moon itself. Venus is about to go retrograde. All right, Venus is going to go retrograde 2 days before the winter solstice at 26 Capricorn, conjunct Pluto. I mean, the Scorpio shadow, Pluto, this is going to take us through the start of 2022. We're rolling up our sleeves right now. I'm getting you all amped and prepped up for this period, which, by the way, I'm not saying you have to like. God, it's just like you don't have to like every life. That's such an inauthentic, oppressive idea. You just have to understand your life. And how many people are running away from understanding their life to have this false identity of happiness? I like to be very, very challenging. And here, I'm not always this frazzled, but when I speak on this channel, I become very polarized because I know what the other astrologers and the other spiritual teachers are talking about with their silly costumes and their happy face, and it's bullshit. It annoys me, and then I get very charged, and I go in the very opposite direction. Then people get scared at me because I'm so mean and I'm so dark, but whatever, I'd rather be that than fake and full of bullshit. So, it's just this going against the grain of happiness is a sign of our maturity. I'm going to be totally blunt and totally honest here, and I can't believe I've already been ranting 30 minutes. I see the happiness all the time more so as an immaturity. I really do. The more mature and advanced, to me, spiritually evolved souls, and I know this is a personal thing, so you can take it or leave it. This is a personal opinion coming from the talking head on a YouTuber's channel. The happy-go-lucky, we're always positive emotion is incredibly immature. And I don't see that being owned or embodied by people that are actually in the world doing good work or getting their hands dirty or actually helping to improve other people's lives. It's simply the avoidant, bypassing, skipping around, and using other people when it's handy. Is this, we can be happy all the time. It's immature. It's not real life. There is a season of Scorpio. There is a season of Capricorn. What, are we going to try to turn Scorpio and Capricorn and Pluto and Saturn into light, fluffy, fairy-like energies? No, when we're only doing fairy-like energies, we're only embodying parts of nature, and that is patriarchy. That's the oppressiveness. There's so much talking about Venus and talking about the divine feminine while oppressing Venus and the divine feminine in the same moment. So someone who's going through a season of depression or a season of frustration, to me, is probably someone who's doing the work, is someone who's probably actually allowing themselves to confront and acknowledge the reality of their given circumstance, world, or more complex relationship dynamics. So, it's like this last year and a half with the South Node going through Sag, I've really identified that the New Age movement has this ridiculous Sagittarius shadow psychoses, where it is a continuation of Christianity. The priestly class, whoever is smiling the most, must have prayed the right way, or they're higher up. They're more advanced soul if they're happier. And It's immature. I think there's a lot of stupid people following stupid people because of this deception. The bumper sticker says, would you rather be happy or would you rather be right? And everyone says, well, of course I'd rather be right. But or I'd rather be happy, in this shadow Sag world. Knowledge is a burden. Why would we want to know things or be right about things? Because maybe the truth isn't just about having a blast or a big birthday party every day. Maybe in order to help other people, we got to learn about the truth that's not just pretty or not just happy. So my God, I feel alone in the room all the time because I'm surrounded as an astrologer by this new age expectation to keep things fake and false. And I've even worked with the big Gurujis, and my God, they're abusive, they're rapists. I'm not just saying that. This is what actually creates these abusive dynamics, and it's very unpopular to actually address these things. So anyways, with the Venus in the semi-square to the new moon, there's a need to be open and to explore, to actually discover, hey, do we have a meeting of the minds here? Do we understand one another philosophically here? Are we on this journey together? Can we support each other on this journey together? This is the healthy shadow work. Are we able to support each other in going into the scary places? Are we able to support one another in being triggered? It's like the sweat lodge is a Native American medicine, a very Cancer medicine, where we go in as a family in a circle. Cancer is very circle, round, mother, family, home energy. It's let's all be together in the same space, and then we can air out our emotions. We can talk about our fears, and we can just air it out. We can let it go, and we're going to go into the intensity of the heat, and we're going to purge out these feelings. We're going to purge out these emotions, but what makes it medicine is the natural trine between Cancer and Scorpio, which is the emotional safety, Cancer, the safe feeling space to go into the dark, to air our dirty laundry, to talk about the parts that are scary. I really intensely desire this, and if I talk about this, other people are going to judge me. We need a safe space to go there. I really intensely afraid of this. If I bring this up, people are going to mock me. We need a safe space to go there. And I've been in Sweat Lodge where there was an avoidance of the dark. And it's just like, oh, so-and-so went through a life-changing, destructive, you lost everything, you have nothing. Well, who's the guy next to you? Oh, they're having a new baby? Well, congratulations, you've got a new baby, and blah, blah, blah. We're so happy for your family. And the person who's challenged and seeking support is left in the dark. I've been in this circumstance time and time again with these shitty New Age circles where people think they're doing medicine, they think they're doing really great work, and they're fucking just wanting attention or wanting to be famous or whatever it is. And that's the ulterior motive. That's the actual desire. We say we want to help people. We want something else. If we're not being honest with our selfish desires, my guess is we're full of shit. And I can't even tell you how many people there are around here that are just really professional bullshitters. Oh, I'm such a loving, helpful, healing person. Really? And that's why your 30-day course going for $1 million is going to work for anyone who's actually in trouble? All these New Agers selling their $1 million packages to rich people. I want to see you go into the ghettos. I want to see you start dealing with sick people. Some of the most angry times of my life is when I'm dealing with these spiritual bullshitters and they're talking about how our physical health is a reflection of our spiritual beliefs. You know what that is? That's oppressive to people who have it harder than you do. I can't believe how many people still circulate this belief that your physical health is a reflection of your spiritual belief system. What is this? The fucking Crusades? That's called ableism. That's called looking down and prejudicing against the suffering and disabled people, as if that were spirituality. Give me a fucking break. The light and the shadow goes together. It's immature to pretend that we can be happy all the time. It's a damnation of the feminine, oftentimes being touted by people who are pretending to be representatives of the feminine. This is a new moon opposite to Uranus and square to Saturn. We're really, really going to be seeing our relationship to money, resources, and basic biological needs. This is the summary. This is what I'm trying to get us to come back to time and time again, is it isn't about these idealistic fantasies where we're all ascended. Bullshit. Where we're all, perfectly, harmoniously singing Kumbaya together, as if any community could ever provide a space that's like that in the real world. And there's no more evolution, and there's no more humanity. So we're having to really fundamentally look at needs. We have needs, and everybody's needs are different. Now, this is where I'm very, very fond of Marshall Rosenberg's nonviolent communication. There's very, very core teachings in that I think are absolutely revolutionary. And one of them is, when we have our needs met, we desire to give back to others and the community effortlessly. We have the natural want and the natural desire to help others when our needs are met. So again, a lot of the bullshit out there is we have people seeking their needs through this covering up of a spiritual service, but it would actually be more useful and effective if we simply stated, hey, I have a need for attention. I have a need to be seen. I have a need for community. I have a need for support. And then when I have that need met, I effortlessly am oriented towards charitable activities. I'm effortlessly oriented to how can we bring the same joy and compassion that I feel filled with to others. By the way, we don't ever feel filled with that compassion and love all the time because we're on an evolutionary journey. Even those souls that reach a certain stage of enlightenment and they say, this is the end, I feel this type of blissful peacefulness all the time. I no longer suffer anymore. Even that is a level of bullshit. It comes from a certain stage of enlightenment that can in itself become a trap, because life is much more complex than there ever being a conclusion or there ever being an ending. So anyways, I keep going off of my rants, but this is really going to play out in our world. We're going to see the society, the business, the money, how we're doing agriculture, this currency revolution. I mean, all this stuff's up. It's not being totally seen yet. The significance of this agricultural economic revolution. Is it going to have a massive effect on our culture, on our world? Probably. Is it going to be all smooth? Probably not. I think that there's a lot of bumpiness involving insecurity, money, goods. This is, again, it's going to boil back to fundamental needs. And I suggest that we set all of the spiritual jargon to the side for just a minute and let's be humans. Let's practice being humans November into 2022. We have basic biological needs: food, shelter, support. We have more biological needs than we even know as a species. We have need for touch. We have need for community. Everybody has a need for love. It's not just food and shelter. You can't just go off into the woods and survive. There's a need for love. There's a need for touch. There's a need for intimacy. These are basic biological needs, not just food, shelter, water. Many more needs. That's what we're really going to be experiencing. And I'm unable to keep up with the feedback in the comments, but the gist that I'm sort of getting back is that people get a sense of this frustration. And this can be really useful in this new moon. We can use this nagging frustration or a sense of lack or a sense of there being something missing or something that pisses us off that we're seeing in the world, as I'm constantly addressing in these videos as a critical Scorpio soul myself. But this sense of like there being an itchy sweater, like what the fuck? This is annoying, this is itchy, can we get this off? This is going to inform us. We don't want to bypass the frustration. The frustration is informing us of our human needs. We don't want to settle for a happy face. We want to get down to business, to get our hands dirty and to actually do the work to transform our circumstance. And that's the opportunity. This next month, we can really change our circumstance in a very big way. How we're relating to others, how we're dealing with resources, how we're earning our money, how we're dealing with our bosses. And my guess is there's going to be some type of pressure that is leading to a necessary breakdown. This is, again, necessary defiance, necessary revolution. This is asteroid Hidalgo. This is imperativeness. This new moon is imperative. Something has to change. We can't just do these old patterns we've been stuck into forever. And let's not just bypass and get into the next new age or spiritual one-liner. I can't believe how many people don't have an understanding of life because whatever is the most recent spiritual new age one-liner is what we think the whole of life is all about. Are we able to think for ourselves? The North Node's completing Gemini. Are we able to think for ourselves? Are we able to critically think? Do we know what our needs are? Or if we're unable to know our needs, do we just sell our minds out and we just, whatever other people think they need is what we need too? Are we just listening to the latest new age psychologist in their Instagram post and whatever they post, well, that's what I need to do right now? Have we actually researched any of our own dynamics? Do we know what's alive in us? It's not going to be the same for everyone, I'll tell you that. If we're just following some new age teacher that's going to give away a one-size-fits-all, the way I am to you all right now, this can't be enough. This isn't what I do. This is just a free chat, in all seriousness, because it would not be satisfying to me if this is what I did and I sat an audience around me and I yapped at you. Like, that would fucking do a whole lot. Oh yeah, the next ascension date's going to be, and you all just clap your hands and pay me tons of money. God damn. I keep needing to isolate myself because I go out in there in the world and it's just oh my God, this really is all pervasive. And that's why I talk about the things that I do. So anyways, very imperative nature, encouraging to get down and acknowledge the actual full spectrum of life. Do we have to like it? No, we do not have to like it. Do we have to see the glasses half full? No, we do not have to see the glasses half full. You know what's funny? It's a lot easier for some people to see their life and their glasses half full than it is for others. Wouldn't that be oppressive for me to put that expectation on others as if that were a sign of spiritual maturity? It is not. If anything, it's a sign of luxury and privilege. And luxury and privilege likes to sell itself as achievement. It's time to completely reinvent the structures of our life. If there isn't the pressure to do this, if there isn't the need to change, if there isn't that tension, my guess is we're not really on the earth right now. We're going to experience this tension, and the way that we embrace life holistically is to use it. We don't avoid Saturn and Pluto throughout our lives as if there were things that cannot, as if there were only things that we can change. You know what Saturn Pluto reality is? There are things you can't change. I'm going to say that again because I don't see a lot of my New Agers accepting the fact that there are things we cannot change. And those are the things that require us to learn about those things, to adjust those things so that way we can start to learn in a world where there are laws of nature. One of the laws of nature is that there's more than one person. There's more than just ourselves. How are we going to function in a society of different people with different skill sets, different basic needs? Well, it's probably not going to be a one-size-fits-all cult. We have to actually figure out how to function as a species. And we're barely crawling out of the medieval era. We were crusading and converting everybody else to our one-size-fits-all religion as if that were the solution. So we need to reinvent the basic structures of society. We need to actually change how we're living, how we're breathing, the space that we're in. This forthcoming lunar eclipse in Taurus is property, it's money, Scorpio, Taurus polarity. How much is our money merged together and how much space do we need apart? It's the dynamic between intimacy and space. It's the dynamic between intense change and integration. We all have a need for space and slowness as well. We all have basic love language, Venus, and basic sensual needs, Venus, that will be unique for each and every one of us. Well, that's going to form a unique living environment. Some of us need to be in nature. Some of us need to have people around us. It's not personal. It's how we actually preserve, Taurus, our energy. There's a need to dive into the complexity of life. There's a need to ruffle feathers here. It's not all going to be nice and pretty if we're actually doing conflict, if we're actually doing confrontation, healthily, respectfully, but necessarily. And that being balanced with the need for space, sovereignty, simplicity. I need time to digest. I need some time to go off by myself. We need to understand how to get our hands dirty, how to talk and expose the parts that are scary. Every single person has these parts. Every single person has the parts that are scary, that are dark, that are unresolved in them. And the people that are talking about them have achieved a level of self-acceptance that's going to allow them to heal and transform much more fluidly than the people that are going to keep themselves closeted, who are going to live in denial and are going to have to lie to themselves and others time and time again. And you know what that does? It increases fear. We have to veer into what we're afraid of to overcome our fears. I used to be afraid of the dark. I had negative experiences in the dark, uncomfortable campouts and winter and, as a child. And my mind would take the shadows and turn them into fascinating beasts and scary creatures. And the sound going through the branches were demon noises. And, I had to spend a lot of time in the dark, alone in the forest by myself, in order to face those fears, and time again, the sound, the shadows, and then running away from them. What happens when you run away from those things? What is fear itself but the dynamic experience of running from something, right? If a saber-toothed tiger springs up, we run from it. That fear is a running away from. We will spend our entire lives running away from the things that we fear until we get our willingness to get our hands dirty. Do we have to like it? No. Do we have to have a smile on our face while we do it? Fuck no. This is why I see a level of maturity in the people that actually live full spectrum lives. They have good, happy, negative, depressing emotions. They have seasonal depressions. They have seasonal depressions are the people doing the work, period. Why would we be so afraid of those things if we were all doing the work and supporting each other to do it? We aren't. We don't have the support to do the work. We have the type of support that's just like that sweat lodge. Who's the person who's got the most exciting thing going on so we can all focus on them and not have to feel the grossness of the person who's struggling the most right now. Boy, I really like what they do for me until I get to know them well enough, and then I start to feel that they have a shadow, and now I'm starting to lose my soul, and I need to not soak up their negativity. Tell me you haven't interacted with these people or heard or experienced these things. It's witch hunting. It's scapegoating. It's shadow projection. It's where we're too avoidant to confront our own shadow stuff, and so we got to put it on somebody else and then blame them when it's convenient to do so. And when it's convenient to take their light, when they're in a happy place, then that's convenient. I think it takes a greater level of maturity to sit in our own shit and say, I'm having a really bad day. It's not like I should be having a good day. This is what I'm dealing with. That's reality. Do you know what that level of reality brings to us? A true appreciation of the good days when we have them, because then we can authentically celebrate them. But we also don't get too attached to them. Why? Because the light and the shadow always goes together. This is nature. This is nature. It is the thorns on the rose plant. And it's, if you want to grow food, it's going to take some work. It takes some blood, sweat, and tears to create a beautiful garden. That's reality. When we give ourselves the permission to not have to fake it when we're doing the hard work, what we'll actually do is develop a taste and an appreciation for Saturn and Pluto, which, by the way, doesn't mean that we start smiling. It means that we go through Saturn and Pluto periods and we don't get scared. We don't get thrown off. I can look serious and I can look sad, or I can look a little bit more somber, and that can be a reflection of someone who has just come out of a prison sentence, or someone who's just survived a very long winter. And that person's going to have a level of maturity and appreciation for life, light, the small things that other people may not. But may they have a kind of war vet like harshness or hardness? I think so. And that to me is maturity. That to me is having been there, done that, having lived and survived these real aspects of life. We can all give each other permission to be authentic war vets, to be biological animals, to have magnetic attractions and repulsions that don't have to always look pretty. Life is not pretty. God has not shown me that she's always appropriate. Why should we carry the burden or the expectation to behave completely appropriately, quote unquote, ourselves? And folks, I encourage you to be a little bit meaner out there in the world, respectfully. Challenge the status quo. Challenge the norm. You don't have to be happy when your boss takes a shit on you, when your government is oppressive, when even the people who say that we're progressive and taking things into the forward, it actually ends up being all talk and not what we're actually doing. Call that shit out. Leave that group. Quit that pattern. This new moon opposite to Uranus is going to shine a tremendous light on these dark, more complex, more hidden areas. If we're not comfortable to admit them in ourselves, if we're not able to go there in the world, this can turn into a very scary haunted house-like situation. This is when people do not remain in their bodies and then do things that they otherwise, we're going to see some of this. We're going to be surprised with the behavior that it shocks us. It's not in character with ourselves or with others. And we have to look at these parts. These are actually the areas where the rubber hits the road and we can become really empowered. We can transform, grow in incredibly powerful, potent ways. Okay. So we've got a whole Venus retrograde on the horizon. Venus is going to square Chiron on the 15th of this month, station retrograde 2 days before the winter solstice in December, and then return to the square to Chiron at the end of January 2022. There's a little bit of a heart lesson here with Venus. And this heart lesson is going to be introduced to us this coming week. And then we're going to continue this heart healing through the beginning of 2022. And this is, again, an area where I feel that it's important to allow the full of human experience. That when we enter into a loving connection with anybody, there will be the experience of heartbreak. That the pain that we experience in our hearts is something that we can expect in relationship. And when we have the experience of brokenheartedness, we can know that that is driving our heart healing, which we could say on a much deeper level is a spiritual journey. Chiron is the healing journey. Honestly, I see Chiron is the spiritual journey. I see a lot of people talk about spiritual journey. The healing journey is the spiritual journey, where we've had our experiences of brokenness, of trauma. That is the initiation, or I should say initiations, because we don't just have one period of that. We get them again and again and again, regardless of what stage of evolution you're on, regardless of what your spiritual beliefs are. We get shredded. We get the experience of brokenheartedness. We get the experience of spiritual disillusionment or deception as necessary turning points in our spiritual development. The healing journey and the spiritual journey are one and the same. The journey of exploring where we are hurt or where we are wounded is where we will uncover and discover our medicines. So there is a coming heart lesson in our relationships, in our connections with others, in our exchanging of resources. This Venus semi-square, the new moon, there's a need to be open, to discover, and also to surrender to the hand of fate. This is another perspective I'm bringing up that is not in agreement with a lot of these spiritual beliefs that are actually disempowering because they'd like to cop out of the fact that we don't get to choose everything in life, and there are experiences in our life that we cannot change. We do see this revealed in the birth chart. And I do have this confirmed through every case study that I do. There are things that we cannot change. We have particular karmic packages. We each have unique evolutionary directions that catalyze experiences, not all just fun and games. Evolution is driven by cataclysm, oftentimes, or stuck between a rock and a hard place type of experience. That catalyzes evolution, okay? So this is a necessary fatedness to evolve and grow through experiences that at times may be dark and pressureful. And the only reason I continuously go on my rants and I'm so excruciatingly redundant is I cannot believe the lack of awareness and understanding of these principles out there in the world, to the point where the people who are suffering and need support and help the most are the ones being discarded, discluded, and thrown under the bus. What we're actually learning to do, if we have any spiritual backbone at all, is to learn that we have needs that are going to be selfish. Other people have needs that are going to be selfish. And it's simply a matter of, can this work? We're going to get really, really down to earth in our relationships these coming months. It's not an idealistic daydream why you are with so-and-so, or why you have friends that are like this or that. There are reasons why we're attracted to the particular person, place, or group that we are. We experience our life lessons in these relationships. When we try to bypass or avoid them, they repeat in the next group, place, or relationship. This is one of the most easily observable truths. How many of you have left one relationship because it was so bad, and then you noticed that your next relationship had all the same issues and dynamics? What are those issues and dynamics that really in the other person? Relationship is for us to take a look in the mirror. And we're going to be getting down to earth and understanding relationship is two people have unique needs. Can we honor each other's unique evolutionary path, which means we're not stepping on each other's toes as individuals. We're going to agree on things. We're going to disagree on some things. We're going to have shared value systems. We're going to have value systems that are not shared. Any person, any relationship that's proclaiming they have completely the same value systems, beliefs, philosophies, agree on everything, like to do everything. If they're not same souls, which are the most rare type of relationship where you literally have two people that look, act, and sound the same, and they tend to get bored because they are the same, and it's like dating yourself. There's no relationship that's like that, realistically, 99% of the time. And we have these fantasies and these delusions that it's got to be this spiritual picture, or it's got to be like this lavish vacation, or it's got to be like this ideology or this ideal, and we've got to be perfectly agreeable, and we've got to hold hands and walk at the same time, at the same pace, and it's bullshit. Let's get very, very real. Let's get very, very selfish. Let's get to the primitive biological level. I have these basic needs. You have these basic needs. Is it going to work? Can this work? How can we change things to make this work? And there's going to be changes. There's going to be some heartstrings getting pulled here. There's going to be a need to let go where it's necessary to let go. There's going to be a need to sit in the fire and show up in someone else's pain, even if it's inconvenient to us at the time, because that's what love is. No more of this new age bullshit feminist love where you use somebody when it's useful and then we discard them when they have negative emotions, which is basically when we have a relationship that lasts more than 5 minutes. See, the first phase of relationship is Libra, and it's ideal, and we go on these dates, and it's so exciting to learn about one another, and I'm so in love with you because you're so new and so fresh and so exciting, and this is like an adventure, and we get full of all of these chemicals that make us feel like we're high on drugs, and isn't that lovely? And then we stay with somebody for more than 5 minutes, and you enter into Scorpio reality. You start to realize that conflict and confrontation is not something that can ever be avoided, but rather it is necessary in any interaction because there's going to be areas where tensions and disagreements arise, and we have to talk about those things to know, are we getting our needs met? Are we unconsciously stepping on each other's toes? What, is someone just going to be the toe stepper and the other person just volunteers to be swallowed up and have their toes stepped on all the time? That's how I see most relationships functioning in a working sense, quote unquote. We're going to actually get down to business to make these relationships work. There's a massive healing of the heart that can take place now through springtime of 2022. My sensitive friends, brothers and sisters who are feeling this wave of darkness, heaviness, apprehension, absolutely. You're simply tuned in with nature. You don't even have to like it. You don't even have to, see the glass as half full. I really don't think that's necessary to use this time and this opportunity consciously, willfully, to use that tension, to use that frustration to make change. Tension means there's two disagreeing parts that calls awareness to where the parts disagree. That's it. We don't have to pretend that that's not there. We're going to use that to mutually grow and evolve into something that can be bigger and better. Okay, one more time, summary. New moon opposite to Uranus, square to Saturn. It's also a nice trine to Pallas Athena. I mean, we can get deep, we can get mystical, trine to Neptune, we can get psychic, we can consult our ancestors. It's Samhain taking us through November. Samhain's not over. So we can get deep, we can expose, we can whistleblow, admit the truth even when the truth ain't pretty. And the truth ain't pretty, because God herself has shown me she's not always appropriate. We have power dynamics in every single relationship. Are we talking about them? Are we admitting them? Or are we pretending that there's something that they are not? We all have compulsive wants and desires. We all have compulsive fears and apprehensions. These security needs and insecurities are the driving forces of our life, period. Are we willing to admit that, or do we need to hide and run away? Everybody has selfish needs. Everybody has needs. Everybody has a light and the shadow. The shadow is only where we've had suppressed needs in the past. We've all had conditioned suppressed needs. Oh, you're not supposed to have those needs. And then we forget them when we're 5 years old. We have to remember our suppressed needs. We have to go back to our childhood. We have to relive our past traumas to understand what got fragmented, what got taken from us, got forcibly injected into us. Scorpio is the reality of rape. It's not what we choose. Life is not just what we choose. What a bypass. No, we have things forced upon us sometimes. Then we have to evaluate, is this really ours? Or is this theirs? Is this really my need? Or am I so considerate that I'm unconsciously reflecting their need? Is this really what I want to do, but I'm so sensitive, I've unconsciously merged with the desires of others. And it's easier to take care of others than it is easy to take care of myself. It's easier to be agreeable than it is to be disagreeable. These are the shadow dynamics. Shadow is not just I'm angry. Shadow is not just I'm horny. Shadow is not just I'm powerful and have a need to manipulate and control. Shadow can be I don't know who I am, so I become somebody else. Shadow is it's easier to people please, and so I am polite and I'm nice and I go along with the group. This is shadow too. We want to be able to be full spectrum humans, to allow ourselves to be informed by the full spectrum of our emotional experience. If we're following these very, very unhealthy spiritual beliefs that happiness is on the top of the emotional food chain and, neediness or Suicidal ideation is the bottom of the food chain. We just become an oppressor and a tyrant to ourselves. Because if we're not being informed by those more negative emotions, we're going to separate and bypass from the parts of ourselves that we don't deem appropriate in our own life. So many people have made this their spiritual practice. It leads to actual evil. It leads to actual manipulation, people taking advantage of others while they thinking they're being saviors and gurus. And my God, it's all pervasive at this time. The South Node is completing its transit of Sagittarius. The North Node in Gemini lesson is the reality of duality. This nature is existing through polarity. There is no darkness without the light, and vice versa. You do not know the person until you know their shadow. Maybe all of those people who are a little bit darker, a little bit more intense, a little bit more moody are simply the more mature souls who have taken the time to get to know themselves via having already lived more full spectrum experiences that have not just been all fun and games. We all want to be a little bit more like those war veterans. We all want to be a little bit more real. And let's see ourselves reflected in the mirror and acknowledge the badass that we actually are. We can show up in the world powerful. We can show up in the world fearless. If other people don't understand it, that's their problem. It's not your problem. We're not waiting for permission from other people. We're not waiting to be understood. We can see and understand what's going on beneath the surface when we have this level of honesty in ourselves. This has been one of my major, guesses as to why I have a capability to see people for where they actually are. I really don't so much get manipulated or deceived by people. I see this as something other people struggle with. I pretty much see, oh wow, that person's full of fucking shit. Why is everyone applauding for them? Amazing. And I feel that that's because of the ridiculous amount of honesty that I have of my own shadow dynamics. Do I look at myself and be just like, whoop, good thing I did that? It's like, whoa, holy shit. Wow. Wow. If we can have that level of transparency and self-honesty in others, I think we're going to be able to maneuver through the world in a way that's far less naive, where we're much more capable of actually constructing the world that we want to live in. It's a very powerful new moon, folks. Asteroid Lucifer on Mercury, Lilith on Chiron. We're healing sexuality. We're healing our biological nature. We're actually getting down to business with revolutionizing our human species. The new moon conjunct asteroid Hidalgo. Hidalgo was the revolutionary priest who rang the church bell, started the Mexican Revolution, and overthrew Spain. We have the oppressor in ourselves. That's the conditioning limitation of the past. The religious upbringing that says this is what good boy or girl is supposed to do. This is what bad girl or boy is supposed to do. We've got to ring the church bell. This is the opportunity to really catalyze transformation. Put some magic into this new moon. The theme is imperative. It's imperative what we're waking up to. It's imperative that we assert and initiate the changes that are going to revolutionize our lives. It's the year to take risks. It's the year to go into the unknown. We can really be paying it forward. Even if it's a little uncomfortable, even if we're ruffling people's feathers, they'll catch up to us later on. As always, I've been talking for 70 minutes and I forgot to announce, you can get my Pluto workshop in the link description below, rossalilahealing.com/store. Now, this is the material. This is going to cover your shadow dynamics. And I'll be honest, I have not seen anything out there in the world that is as useful at identifying and working through shadow dynamics than evolutionary astrology. And some of my peers are like, hey, you need to get into therapy, this, that, the other thing. Yes, I need people to talk to, but it's also frustrating because it's just like, wow, people really live in the medieval era not having the maps and the tools that I do. If you want to understand your shadow, the book is Pluto, The Evolutionary Journey of the Soul by Jeffrey Wolf Green. Go to my store. You can purchase the Pluto workshop. It's a summary study of Jeffrey Green's book. And my God, does it go straight to the core. You're going to know your shadow if you look into Pluto material. And be warned, as a disclaimer, I have had people become very triggered doing this Pluto workshop because it's so damn real. You're gonna understand your life, the challenges of your life, and why we live these lifelong challenges for the purpose of our own soul's evolution. My favorite quotation, I should say one of my favorite quotes from Mr. Jeffrey Green is, you don't have to like your soul's evolutionary work, you just have to do it. That is the voice of Pluto, that is the voice of reality, and we do pay it forward in that way, and the proof is in the pudding. We prove to ourselves why going through it is worthwhile. You can also join my Astro School. It is an ongoing school. I am just this month wrapping up the planets and the zodiac, so you can get all the planets, all the zodiac. It's a very, very in-depth understanding of astrology, not to be found simply everywhere out there in the world of pop astrology land. I also have an online community of like minds. People are doing really beautiful things there. We just had our first Pluto study group that someone volunteered to do themselves, and it's completely free to join. Join my community for free. You can sign up for the Pluto study group. Check out Jeffrey Green's book. It is the time. Get your hands dirty. You're going to come out as a powerhouse. I want to make. I want to see reflected through my own powerhouse blabber. More powerhouses out there, so I feel less alone in the world. Okay, I'm going to clap my trap. Who is Jeffrey Green? Who is Jeffrey Green? Google is your best friend. Heck, Jeffrey Green's on YouTube, and he's not a very viewed astrologer, which really amazes me how some of the greatest, most in-depth astrology is some of the least popular out there in the world. I'll leave you off on that note. Remember, Scorpio is the real deal. Scorpio is also a little bit more secret, a little bit more reserved for the far and few between, because it's for the brave of heart, those who actually desire to plummet into and discover the bottom of the barrel, the underlying reality of life.